Hello and welcome. This is important. This is one of the guiding three principles that Renew is based on. And here are the three that govern Renew's philosophy and principles for the doctors that are involved with your treatment plans. Now, the first one is something you're familiar with. All of the three principles, they're all stolen from somewhere else, but they work very, very well for the service of dentistry and I would say the art of dentistry, or the science of dentistry, or the biology of dentistry, or the faith of dentistry, and what dentistry can do. This first guiding principle is called Keep It Simple. But basically what we're talking about is when treatment plans become too complicated and they rely on something I call miracles. Miracles I mean by biological events that can be predicted to a certain point. Everybody's different, and you want to only do really one thing at a time. If you're a golfer, you understand this. You only change one thing about your stroke at a time. So here, when you have to rely on what I call miracles, you don't do them all at the same time. You want to do them sequentially to see if one healed and what caused what, and some of the issues that we face when we're dealing with bone healing or surgical events. Now, if it gets too many of the miracles, then it would be worth looking at the treatment plan again and reassessing to see really whether or not this is something it should be going forward. Sometimes we can find a simpler solution, and other times there are no solutions. Sometimes I've seen patients where I feel like they're oral or dental handicap. There's really nothing else you could do. Those are very unfortunate events. But so here, if you want to look on our YouTube site, I do case studies, and this particular case study is what I'm going to talk about in terms of miracles you're needing that are going to make this case work the way the patient thinks it could work, or why the patient came in the first place. So take a look at this case. It's on the YouTube site or the YouTube channel, or if you click through our links through our website, you could see the same thing. But let's talk about that. Here's a case study sample. This particular case is dealing with a fractured root from a 3-unit bridge. So of course this patient does not want a bridge. They want implants. Now the problem is that this is very, very infected, and the bone is really eaten away quite a bit. But let's look at this case a little bit closer, and I call this miracle number one. And miracle number one is when you do a socket preservation here, does this bone have healing capacity? Now this bone is very hard. It's a D1 bone, and D1 bone or D4 bone, they don't have very good healing capacities. That's why they end up in the red zone. So if you don't realize what I'm saying, please go to the treatment assessment videos and worksheet. So here's what I would call the first miracle. It's something very important here, if we're going to get to it in a second, is this yellow line comes right here at the top. And that ends up being the line right here, which ends up being fairly low in the arch. So it's going to really start to shrink the arch down, because you can't really build the bone up high either. There's not a lot of structure there. If you're going to do a miracle like this, you're going to need a lot of graft materials. You're going to need a lot of different types of things to try to make this one successful, simply because that fractured root ate all that bone is getting eaten away so bad. This is so delayed in extracting and being serviced that there's not a lot of good bone left to even work with, if there was any from the start. So you kind of start off in a poor spot, you made it even worse. That bridge is holding that tooth in and causing more bone defect to occur. The second miracle here, I have, like I said, the site next to it is a D1 bone as well. So if you're looking at the site in front, it's got the destroyed bone from the fractured root, but then if you do an implant there, what are you going to do about the site that the bridge was helping in the first place? That's site number 19. So lower left first molar from this picture here. Right here, this site right here is not a good site for dental implant. So miracle number 2 looks like this, and that's a very difficult bony situation to work with. And now miracle number 3 ends up being that if you have the bone kind of healed in there, it's probably going to heal at that level very low. And what happens is now you've got really hard bone you're trying to get into, and you got really soft graft site bone. And really what's going to happen here is look how far down your top of the implant is relative to the adjacent teeth or the bone. So if the bone heals to that site, which is probably one of the lowest levels it's actually going to heal to, you're probably not going to want it anyway, because the bone gets pulled down from the adjacent area. So there's gum tissue goes right here. So you don't have anything here to work with. I mean, you're drawing all the bone away from this tooth here, which is a good one that you want, just to try to help this one. And then you got poor bone here. So you got poor bone, you got not great bone either here. It might heal, but now you put the implant in, you're way down below the bone height, that you're going to start pulling the bone down away from the adjacent tooth. So now you've got another problem in the future that you're going to have, plus you're going to have so much tissue from the top of that implant, the chances of getting recurrent infections is very high. So it's kind of like miracle and a miracle and a miracle, and it's just too much. So my question is now when you know that there's just too much trying to happen, too many miracles, too many biological events to occur without any really great end results, what do you do here? It's not that this patient doesn't have a choice. There are choices, and thank God there is. And the only reason why there's a choice is because this tooth is here and saved. Hopefully this tooth is still good, doesn't have any decay around it, because there's a 4-unit bridge or a 5-unit bridge option in this case. If this case did not have that tooth available, this case may just be a miracle case, and you do not have a very good solution here. You might have a removable partial denture situation, but I don't recommend those. You can possibly do a cantilever back to the premolar off of these teeth instead of the implant here. But if that tooth didn't exist, then I would say you have to graft it and hope for the best. Really let that heal more than just the 4 months. I would let that probably heal 6, 7, 8 months, just to really get some more mature bone and really see how that bone heals before you start doing the second miracle, which is placing the implant. And what you want is that bone stays up very high. Another possibility for a miracle situation here is what I would say is called pre-drill this site here for an implant, bigger than the implant that you're going to be putting in there. Let the bone heal on its own or graft it. Now you get new mature bone hopefully in there that's softer, not this D1 bone. Let that heal for 6 or 7 months. Maybe that would work. It's an untraditional way of placing implants, and it's going to take almost a full year before you do it. But otherwise, this case, the patient is basically a dental cripple without that one tooth. And so I would say, in my case, I would suggest that this patient do a bridge piece, extract that, graft the site, put the bridge in, let it heal, and just live your life. You know, get the 4 or 5 unit bridge. You know, in 10 years, 20 years, or whenever that bridge goes bad, maybe we have new technology. Maybe you'll just face it then. Maybe you'll decide on a cantilever back. I don't know. There's not many good choices after this one here. So that's keep it simple.